Top story this week, living in Antarctica. Oh yeah, alright, it's very icy, baby. It's pretty cold, alright. She was an Antarctican girl. Antarctica. Yeah, here to house some motherfucking seals, yeah. Andy,
wow, what an audition. What an audition.
The South Pole, Andy, as we all know, is one of the world's top 2 poles. Has been for years. We operate very much a 2-pole system in this world, and it seems incredible that throughout human history a 3rd pole has not emerged to challenge the dominance of the top 2. We even have buglers listening from Antarctica, as we found out in an email a while ago. We have a bugler listening in a research station down there, presumably using the bugle to test what effect sub-zero temperatures have on extreme audio bullshit. But the South Pole is not something that you think about a lot, but we'd all miss it if it was gone, or if you even skim read environmental reports, we will all miss it when it's gone. And it's easy to ignore the South Pole until bits of it are floating towards the ship that you're on, so let's give it a bit of attention this week. It was 100 years ago that Captain Scott, the explorer, adventurer, and greatest man ever to have the middle name Falcon. That's a hell of a middle name, Andy.
That
if
is.
your middle name is Falcon, you better find a way of earning that name.
Yeah.
You had better get your ass to the South Pole or up a mountain once in a while, or it should be forcibly confiscated.
So you rate Robert Falcon Scott above Elvis Falcon Presley?
I do.
That's controversial.
I do. Go up a mountain, Elvis. Go up a mountain. Earn the name. Scott, of course, famously reached the South Pole, only to find out that Amundsen had beaten him to it. Amundsen, as Andy himself once described him to me, was a, and I quote, cheeky Norwegian c***. Now, I don't think an English person had been so angry at a Norwegian since the Vikings turned up drunk and went on a pillaging bender.
Yeah, it's 100 years, as you said, since the death of arguably the most famous silver medalist of all time, Captain Scott, the polar explorer extraordinaire. Sadly, not quite extraordinaire enough. He popped his extremely cold clogs in late March 1912. Clogs, pretty bad footwear for a polar expedition, I reckon. After he and his team were pipped by Amundsen to the annoyingly chilly post. Amundsen, the Scandinavian shithead, as the British media called him at the time, or Freddie Frostyballs, the Financial Times went with. But the story is that after spending months trekking across the barren polar landscape, Scott and his team finally realised that they'd been beaten when they saw a sign in Norwegian saying "South Pole that way, losers," and then arrived at the pole to see the marks in the snow where Amundsen had slid over to the pole on his knees in celebration, before ripping off his whaleskin t-shirt as the rest of his party jumped on him in a massive bundle, and then found a solitary Viking's helmet in the snow, and the name of the ancient Viking king Canute misspelt in big letters. But some exciting new developments in the Scott story, John. I've recently unearthed some audio of the press conference Captain Scott gave the day after reaching the South Pole
have they really?
in 1912. And luckily we've managed to get exclusive access to that.
Have we?
Here on the Bugle.
That
We have,
seems
John.
an incredible scoop, Andy.
Well, yeah, I guess other media outlets were distracted by the phone hacking scandal and didn't bid for, and we put all the Bugle millions into it, so I think it was worth it. It's very interesting stuff. That's Chris, can you play it in now?
Yeah, well, obviously it's disappointing to arrive at the South Pole after all the years of planning and months trekking across an obviously inhospitable continent to find that the boy Amundsen had got there first. But fair play to the big Norwegian. He's done a terrific bit of exploration there, the lads. Cracking effort, and he's come out on top. Well, on bottom, I suppose. Fair play to Roldy. He was the better polar explorer on the day. But I think we've got a lot of positives to take away from this one. Captain Scott, Julius Hardstash, Times of London. Do you have a message for the British Antarctica fans? You must be very disappointed at your defeat. Well, I don't really see it. I don't really see it as a defeat, Julius. Well, you didn't win, and now the fans want to know why. Well, I think we can take a lot of positives away. Stop crapping on about positives! The fans don't want positives, Captain Scott. They wanted you to come back with a Frobisher's Thermal Jockstraps Golden Penguin Trophy to parade around London on an open-top horse. You've let them down! Well, Julian, we gave it 110% out there. We've left it out all there on the ice shelf, and at the end of the day, that's all I can ask of the boys.
Pranton Jalhoun, Tunbridge Wells Courier. Captain Scott, what is wrong with the British system for producing polar explorers?
Well, I think we're oversimplifying things. We've got some terrific young explorers coming through, and if any more poles are discovered, I'm sure Team GB will be right in there in the thick of the exploring.
Captain Scott, will you resign?
Captain Scott! Mickey Strong, Daily Star! What do you think of film star Mary Pickford? Captain Scott! What about Mary Pickford's shin-length skirt that she was seen wearing on the beach last week? Captain Scott! Captain Scott, you got anything to say about the rumours linking you with the Arsenal job? That's all. I don't want to take any more questions. I'd just like to thank our sponsors, Wap Horns, Organic Low-Fat Crispy Penguin Beaks, Durex Whale-Gut Condoms for reduced sensitivity, and Jack's Homemade Mahogany Sledges. No further comments. Thank you.
Andy, I think you just brought down Chris's house price. To commemorate this anniversary, people have been revealing details of Scott's final expedition, even some of what was on the menu. Now, when they were at base camp, it was actually a pretty lavish menu. On special occasions, meals ran to several courses. Salted almonds, turtle soup, roast beef, stewed penguin, crystallised ginger and champagne all featured on such menus. Now, if you're anything like me, you only heard 2 words from that list. And those words were stewed penguin. I love penguins, Andy. Yeah. They're nature's clowns. And it'll be a cold day in hell before I ever eat one of them, cold or otherwise. Penguins are too funny to eat. It will be like eating Bill Cosby. In fact, I would eat a stewed Bill Cosby before I would ever eat a penguin. Fact.
But, I mean, you do have to ask, John, because, you know, it's always been hard to get good quality penguin to eat, even in the most expensive restaurants. And you have to think, when you look at Scott's reputation, it's swung up and down ever since, some accusing him of costly errors, others saying he was a hero and inspiration. But we have to ask, did Scott go to the Antarctic in the spirit of exploration, or because it was the only way to make socially acceptable his uncontrollable urge to eat penguins? Because a man eats a penguin in London, he's a weirdo. A man eats a penguin in Antarctica, he's just eating local produce. For those of you wondering what penguins taste of, apparently it's a cross between a gorgonzola and raspberry souffle, a pint of whiskey spritzer and a smoked hedgehog.
It's actually much easier to study Antarctica now than it was back in Scott's time, partly because there is much less of it. The European Space Agency announced just yesterday that a massive ice shelf in the Arctic Peninsula has shrunk by 85% in the last 17 years. I'm guessing that is bad news, Andy. They weren't specific about whether it was, but I'm guessing that it hasn't shrunk by 85% in a good way. The amazing thing is that with all the technology we have now, there are still things about Antarctica that we don't understand, even what is under all of the ice, which is amazing. I just presumed that we knew that, Andy. I knew that I didn't know, but I just presumed that someone else did. I feel that way about so many facts. I don't know what the capital of Botswana is, but I presume that somebody does.
I'd assume that under the Antarctic ice sheet is there's just some evil megalomaniac with a giant rocket.
What, I think so.
But just slightly regretting having concealed his secret hiding place and launch pad arguably too effectively.
Well, that might be much more true than you think, Andy, because scientists have been using radar and other imaging technology to uncover what's under there. Apparently, under the East Antarctic ice sheet, there is a huge mountain range as big as the Alps, and they're also looking for hidden volcanoes. I love hidden volcanoes, Andy. You never know what's inside them. As you say, it could so easily be an evil lair. My dream is to live in a hidden volcano, Andy. The only problem you got there is the lack of natural light. But I'm guessing that's what makes living in a hidden volcano affordable, especially if it's not in a very expensive area.
But, as you say, scientists, those self-proclaimed arbiters of measurable facts, those unrepentant users of research and evidence, have claimed that the ice shelf has shrunk by 85% in 70s. I can back that research up, John, because I put an ice shelf up in my living room last summer to try to keep my books fresh, and that shrunk by 100% within a day. So I can see, this for me, this rings true, this scientific research. But the European Space Agency had been doing this research using one of its satellites to snoop on the celebrity southernmost continent in the world. And with its hidden-in-space camera technology, it peeped on the Larsen B ice shelf, stripping off 85% of its ice. And that's a problem with satellite technology, John. When ice shelves know they're being watched by the scientific paparazzi, they just get paranoid about body shape and just start trying to lose ice for the photographs. It's been a bad time for the Larsen ice shelf family. Larsen B falling to pieces for almost 20 years now. Larsen A disintegrated completely and died in 1995. Larsen C just about holding itself together, but I mean, it's like the Jacksons all over again. And to finish our Antarctic section, a rather delightful quote from one of Scott's contemporaries, I believe, an explorer called Apsley Cherry Garrard, who said, "Polar exploration is at once the cleanest and most isolated way of having a bad time which has yet been devised."
Is that true?
Yeah.
That is a great quote.